what did you think of it from a distance, at least, with Adam kind of starting a fire with Edmonton Oilers fans about that?
Yeah. So, I mean, this is it. Look at it, it's two explosive fan bases. I think
Yes.
it's a simmering topic around the league. And quite honestly, with respect to Austin Matthews, for the last number of seasons, I don't think you could truly build a case. I mean, you could argue he's more impactful at doing X and McDavid's Y, but this season is the one season where I think you could at least try to build an argument that Austin Matthews might be having a slightly more impactful season on the Leafs than McDavid is with Edmonton. Although I have to say, it's not definitive. Mm-hmm. But maybe the gap has narrowed. But none of us have a crystal ball. This is much as clear. I think when both these guys' careers are done, I don't think there's going to be a debate about who was the better player. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but that's kind of how I see it playing out. Like there was times, for example, early in Crosby's career where, it was like whether it was did Clogeroux pass him. I remember there was like a playoff series years ago where there was that discussion, or is Jonathan Toews better than Crosby? And there was probably moments in time where other players maybe at least were on a similar level. But at the end of the day, we're going to remember Sidney Crosby, I believe. Maybe there's an Ovechkin argument to build in here if we want to get into that, but as the best player of his generation. That's where Connor McDavid is going to be, is whatever. But there could be moments in time, or there could be individual seasons where someone else grabs the baton, or maybe has a little bit more shooting luck or whatever, and his season just ends up looking better, whatever it be. But, what's been interesting, I guess the part of the conversation we should address is Matthews. Matthews' defensive impacts this season have been like outrageously good. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting there for me is that if we want to get into narratives, there was concern about losing Zach Hyman off his line, with Hyman going away in free agency. How much did he help Matthews in terms of winning board battles and forecheck and all the things that Hyman did so well? Would there be an impact on his performance? And then, of course, whenever an offensive player's defensive numbers shoot up, you wonder, is he sacrificing some offense to do it? And so far, Matthews is still scoring better than any player in the league in terms of goals per game. So, he's having a terrific, terrific season. I actually think that this could be a question the voters from the Professional Hockey Writers Association have to contend with in a couple of months' time when they're filling out their ballots. Like, I think as it stands today, I don't see a clear-cut winner in the Hart Trophy discussion. I think it's funny, in my Inside the NHL column that's in the Star on Monday, I do a little top five every week. I contemplated who my top five would be. I wasn't necessarily ranking them in the order I would vote them, but I had Matthews, McDavid. I think Igor Shesterkin of the Rangers, if you look at his season, deserves a place in that conversation. It's tough with Draisaitl, right? Like, I think with the Hart being the player most valuable to his team, it's hard when you have two players that are so elite offensively as Draisaitl and McDavid are, somewhat cancel each other out, or it makes it trickier to vote for one of them. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I had Ovechkin fifth, I remember, just because of the season he's having is wild at his age. And I think I had Johnny Gaudreau, who, kind of quietly he's having a monster campaign on the NHL's hottest team. Sometimes the Hart Trophy gets, like, narrative does figure in a little bit, I think. And, like, when Daryl Sutter was hired, like, you're thinking that is the opposite coach that's going to work for Johnny Gaudreau. And Gaudreau's just having a monster season. I think the Flames are kind of climbing in everyone's estimation in terms of how good their team is, what the outlook might be for their playoff run. That the Foley acquisition last week has helped them. And so, anyway, Gaudreau's the player that I had judged to be the best on his team. Maybe you can make a Markstrom case, but I think it's Gaudreau for them. And so, yeah, that's how I broke it down. Anyway, and as for Adam, I'm sorry, bro. I mean, I don't know if this was by design. I don't think he hides the fact he's a Leaf fan. Maybe he's feeling a little pride seeing Austin Matthews have such a great season. Maybe he's trying to stir up some shit. I don't want to get into that. And I do really believe this is a moment in time, right? That I just don't see anyone with more natural skill than Connor McDavid. But they impact the game a different way too. And I think that's maybe where the debate comes in. Connor McDavid's an elite rush player. Like, we've seen some of those individual goals this season where he can literally dangle through four guys. His speed is rather apparent. He can beat any defenseman in the league wide if he wants to, or he can go right down the middle. But like, he's very dangerous kind of in transition and on the rush. Obviously on the power play, the Oilers are a team that have been very good there for a number of years. You know, Matthews is bigger, maybe a little physically stronger. You're seeing him now engage in board battles more. Like, obviously, just probably the most pure shooter in the game right now. But they sort of impact things differently. And so you might like Coke and Adam Wild might like Pepsi. But
is that how we're likening Connor McDavid and Austin now? It's basically you like Coke or you like Pepsi.
Well,
I'm down with that if that's what we're doing.
Well, I think too, though, and this is something hockey's wrestled with for a long time. Do you care about points, or like how much do you care about points? Because it's going to be difficult in a season where they're both completely healthy for Austin Matthews ever to outpoint Connor McDavid. Now, flip side, Austin Matthews is probably going to score more goals in every given season, more or less, where we're both healthy for the same number of games. So how do you like your impacts? I mean, Austin Matthews doesn't score many cheap goals either. I mean, and scoring technically, like, it's the hardest thing to do in the game.
It's the most important thing to do in a game.
Right. But like Connor McDavid is helping generate more goals because he gets a lot more assists. It tends to get a lot more assists. Like, I just think that two people could value things differently. And I think, look, the way with advanced analytics and stats taking on more prominence, becoming less sort of scary, like I think more accessible. Like you see Don Lecision, like the cards he's putting out, and I know there's other ones that float around Twitter. Like, it helps you conceptualize what all these different metrics mean and how they're can be compared to player A and player B. You know, I think that maybe straight points isn't going to be the only thing that wins players awards or affects. You know, we're getting towards a WAR stat in hockey, right? Depending on which one you like. And WAR, you know, has changed baseball. I mean, it's literally a way to visualize how much more a player is contributing at his position than the average player. I mean, it shows you how many more wins Connor McDavid helps contribute to the Oilers versus an average center, and the same with Austin Matthews. And so you can start to maybe get a comparison that isn't like, well, okay, Connor finished with 12 more points. You know, there might still be able to create an argument that a player like Matthews is better. And so I actually don't think Adam's probably in on the ground floor, like, because I haven't seen this debate being had much lately, at least in like traditional media or even on social media. But
yeah,
I think if the two seasons that they're having trend this way, like they might be 1-2 in the Hart voting, and if there could be sort of a difference of how you view that depending on how you view points versus goals versus defensive impacts and all those sorts of things.
Okay, I have two follow-ups here. So one, I'll say this about Matthews and McDavid. Like, I think that's still fun, though. The fact that a debate can be had at whatever level it is. We're talking about two of the best players in the league going 1-2. Like, that's still fun at the end of the day. And I think it should still be fun. I know a lot of people were upset about, you know, oh, how could Adam say that and disrespect Connor McDavid. That's fun. I come from the school that says, like, okay, if you're debating between LeBron and Kobe, like, that's just fun. Or if you're debating between Crosby and Ovechkin, that's fun. I was on team Jonathan Toews when it came time to debating him and Sidney Crosby. That 2010 Olympics, we all remember the golden goal. But you know who the best forward was at that tournament? Jonathan Toews. I was on that team. I will own that. I get it. Crosby's a better player now, but it's fun to have those debates. I think it's fun to see people go at it over Matthews and McDavid. Let's just keep it fun, though, and not just like slander people, though.
Well, here's my view too. Like, let's go forward 10 years from now, just briefly. When we look back, there probably won't be a debate. Like, it's going to be obvious one over the other. And as I say, it's probably going to be McDavid just based on, like, this guy, like, he has a 100-point season by accident. Like, it's insane. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's going to finish his career with more 100-point seasons than Crosby. And, like, anyway, he's going to put up video game numbers. And he already is. It's just we don't have the full scale, what it looks like. But we have to live sports in real time. Like, we don't know how many cups, if any, either player is going to win. We don't know how many, you know, Conn Smythe trophies, if any, either player is going to win. But so in real time, you're gauging where they are versus each other. You know, both have been on teams that haven't had playoff success. I don't hang that around either their necks as their fault for that. You know, but at least at this stage. But, you know, that's part of the fun of sports is we don't actually know what's going to happen, right? And, you know, that's why I've never been a sports gambler, because I feel like I know enough to know that I don't know shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I can't predict what's going to happen in any given game, any moment. And so that's what makes it fun. It's sort of reality TV, if you will, for people who enjoy watching other people exercise or compete. So, you know, if we're in the middle of these guys' careers, or just really at the meat of like where they're at their absolute primes. I mean, I'm comfortable saying without question, Austin Matthews' best season as an NHL player. You know, I've had the ability to watch him up close and personal for his entire career, and like he's just dominant right now. I mean, when the Leafs are in the offense, first of all, when he's on the ice, the Leafs are almost always in the offensive zone. And it's not only because he starts his shifts there, it's because that's where that's the direction it goes. You know, it's got to be said too. Mitch Marner the last month has been maybe the best Mitch Marner's been as an NHL player. He had struggles early in the season, but he's been great, and he plays, 98% of his even strength shifts with Matthews. So there's two elite players at least on the ice when those guys are out there. But it's something to watch, and I think you're right. Like even if you have this debate and you say, well, Matthews is number 2, like I don't think that's a slap to him. You're still calling him the second best player in the world, or the second most dominant individual performer in the game. So you're right. I think it's all how you frame this, but it became an Edmonton versus Toronto thing. It became a Twitter thing.
I didn't realize that. Like there's such
it though. The big boss man knows that kind of controversy is good for business.
Yes, I mean, it's controversy sells or debate sells. But yeah, I didn't realize there was just all this like bad blood, not bad blood, but just like this weird back and forth between Edmonton and Toronto fans. Like, geez, man, like, and Vancouver fans too, which is a whole other issue. The second thing I wanted to bring up with regards to voting for like the Hart Trophy. You mentioned the fact that advanced stats are becoming so much more accessible. And like I work with Dom and I see the player cards. I actually upload those player cards like every week on the website, and I'm seeing like all the stats that come through and all that, and seeing them just being shared and people just like looking at defensive metrics and all this other stuff. Like it's a cool thing to have happen. I'm just curious from what you've seen from people voting for awards like the Hart Trophy. What's it been like seeing kind of like the analytical revolution of advanced stats kind of come into play when thinking of a player's impact on a trophy like the Hart Trophy, as opposed to in the past where we might just look at goals, assists, and points? Like, is it more and more people doing it, or is there still a bit of a pushback?
No, it's every year gets a little more accepted, right? Like, let's just work through it. Every year the voter pool gets a little bit younger, right? Like people retire and you're introducing more younger hockey writers into the fraternity like yourself. And younger writers start to get the votes. And I just think people that have grown up with this a little bit are more comfortable with it. What I love it, believe it or not, I actually have a math brain. Most journalists like make a joke about, like, I thought there'd be no
We're
math.
Not good at math.
But I've always had sort of that kind of brain. And so I really like it because it's a way to measure and conceptualize what's happening. Like, I don't know why there used to be this whole argument, like eye test versus numbers, like as though the people that like numbers don't watch the game. Like for me, it's actually heightened my enjoyment of hockey, being able to see the numbers and then compare it to what I'm watching on the ice, trying to measure like what's the most efficient way to be doing a player to be doing his job. Because it's too easy sometimes to just look at one highlight where, say, a defenseman gives up the puck and it goes in his team's net, and you're like, oh, he's terrible or something. Well, it's like, wait a minute, like he was on the ice for a lot of other time when all this other stuff happened. And let's face it, there's a luck portion of hockey that hockey's always trying to sort of make peace with, or because like at the end of the day, it's bouncing rubber on ice. Like just shit happens. Like you could control a game, you can control the puck, and then just one bad bounce and lose 1-0. I mean, I don't know how closely you watch the Olympic tournament, the men's side in Beijing. Like all the big games were like 2-0, 2-1, and those are all single elimination once you get to quarterfinal, semifinals.
Exactly.
That's why, like, had that been an NHL best on best, like it's, even if Team Canada would have the strongest team, like it's so easy not to win a gold medal. Like Canada in Sochi, like it was, 1-0 against Latvia? And I mean that with respect to Latvia, but I'm saying like countries can keep it close and then they get a power play or a goalie makes a mistake or a defenseman coughs up a puck. Like, anyway, I think hockey's always, you want to do everything, you want to control all the parts you can control. A lot of lessons for life built into here too. You want to line up everything and doing the right things and have players that consistently do the right things, but you can still lose an individual game. It's why playoff series are best of 7 in the Stanley Cup playoffs. It's because you're trying to eliminate chance and identify the best team.